Okay, everyone, this is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, Level 2. This is week 5, and we are talking all about solar consciousness. So this ties in very nicely to the Level 1 material, which was just about meditation and mindfulness and cultivating this consciousness. I just need water. I spoke about how really when humanity was created as containers for consciousness in the physical realm, we were meant to be containers for higher consciousness in an unfettered and unbroken relationship. It was not meant to be that we would come here, have earthly experiences, and essentially record them on our hard drive or in the memories of our mind, and then at the end of our existence, upon physical corporeal death, turn in our homework, give in our memories to the sun. We were really meant to live in partnership with the sun as an entity of consciousness. I want to draw pictures now that to understand this, the idea that, like, if I have this as the sun up here in the corner, I'll just say this is the sun and this is us over here. So, this is the sun, and the sun emanates. These are waves of light. These are also waves of timelines and waves of consciousness. And then there's us, these, little humans over here. These little humans are outgrowths of solar consciousness. Now I want to get into personality characteristics and the stars at large. So I've spoken about in your individual life. If I draw, a time cone like this, and I say we are refining your consciousness, and we're refining your consciousness in order to have certain characteristics and not have other characteristics. So we are refining out lower consciousness emotions such as jealousy or grief or possessiveness. And we are refining consciousness towards the level of unconditional love or compassion. And P.S., if I did not make it absolutely clear in the lesson about meditation, when you meditate successfully, you are creating the tone of unconditional love. I'm making an A. A! Unconditional love! That tone is created by you neither grasping forward with your mind into the future or hanging on to the past. This is one of the things that is different about humans than other beautiful animals. Beautiful animals like dogs, cats, monkeys, and mice, and blue whales. These are fantastic, alive, conscious, sovereign beings. They do not necessarily have an awareness of time the way that you and I as humans have an awareness of time. So at a certain point in our early childhood, most of us developed the sense of beginning, middle, and end, or now, before, and soon to be. We develop a sense of time. And then through the human realm, through watches and clocks, we measure time accurately, and we place a great deal on our expectation of the future. And a lot of social programming goes into training children to be able to be on the clock. This is what education and the education system is really about. You learn that you have to wake up at a certain time, go eat your breakfast at a certain time, go to school to catch the bus at a certain time, eat your lunch at a certain time, study math at a certain time. Like, these are training. It's like I've told you in the past, the idea of a horse, and you just begin breaking it for the saddle with a rope around its belly, and eventually you add the saddle, and eventually you add the rider. So this is training human consciousness to be aware of time, and then training human consciousness to break up the day into increments and conform to those increments. First of all, the time scale that you are breaking yourself up into is not in harmony with the natural world. The world of time that we have, 12 hours or 24 hours and 60 minutes or 60 seconds, is an unnatural set of increments to break up our solar day. The sun should be telling us how we should measure time. But we have, or humanity has adopted a artificial and non-harmonious way of measuring the amount of time it takes for the sun to travel in its yearly progress. This is because humans and human culture is slightly out of alignment with nature and with what is supposed to be going on. We need to get back into alignment with the sun as the emanator of consciousness. So first of all, each one of us is going through this refinery, right over here, the refinery, to refine out certain characteristics from your being. The Earth itself and every planet are also refineries of consciousness that are refining out certain characteristics that are out the window, we don't want them, and encouraging other characteristics. Where do these characteristics come from? What is this? What am I talking about here? I'm trying to give the understanding that the sun is a conscious entity and that the sun has personality characteristics just like you and I. A recipe that makes you, you. So you might, when you're describing a person, is this person happy or sad? Are they creative or, uncreative? Or what are their personality characteristics? Or we could say there's personality characteristics like the tendency to strike out on your own and be independent, or the tendency to cling. Like, these are different aspects of consciousness. And truthfully, we are in a non-judgmental realm where we recognize that all colors are equally valuable and equally valid, but we do not necessarily use them in the same color proportions, in the same color recipes. So, if you have noticed in my artwork, I tend to be very heavy on the, well, I mean, this is just a detail of a painting, but tend to be very much on the reds, orange, and yellows, and have only a tiny bit of blue and violet added to it. And that's because that is the color recipe for beings that come from the sun, our nearest star, Sol, S-O-L. This is our being in the sky, our parent. The color recipe that your chakras are comprised of are the personality characteristics of Sol. And Sol has split itself up into a variety of planets. Each planet is like its child, and each planet has its own personality characteristics. So I'm going to do an easy one because I think everyone knows this from mythology. Mars, the planet Mars, is associated with war, okay? The god of war, with being warlike, with being violent, and being aggressive. And I have spoken about this, and most of you are returning students in lesson 18, so I know it's coming up for the level 1 students, but for level 2 students, you know that Mars is a planet that was killed, and the way that it happened. So first of all, Mars does not have a magnetic field. Not having a magnetic field is like not having chakras. It's like being a dead corpse, being a physical body with no living vitality, making that physical body go. So Mars is like Earth's sibling, a member of the family that is similarly an offspring of Sol, solar consciousness, the star that we are part of. But something bad happened to Mars, and Mars died. This has to do with the story of Sol. There's a story happening here, and we need to understand that they're like a drama, a narrative drama is being played out across our whole cosmos. That includes not only our planet, our solar system, but also our galaxy. This would be our Milky Way, and the collection of galaxies that create the totality of this cosmos, or this bubble of reality, or this world bubble that is only one of many, many world bubbles. So there is the primary source of consciousness would be akin to white light, light that contains all of the colors of the rainbow but has not been split up into its constituent elements. When we use a prism or a crystal, we bend light and we refract it, splitting it up into its various elements. That's what the chakras on the body are. These are light which has been split up into its various elements. Your physical element, your emotional element, your human/intellectual element, unconditional love, truth, insight, connection to the divine. These are the various elements that make up the recipe of you. All right? When we add up all of the planets, it's like adding up all of the chakras. Red plus orange plus yellow plus green plus blue plus indigo plus violet equals white. And when we add up all of the chakras on the human body, they should add up to white light or divine consciousness, this solar, stellar consciousness that is from a higher dimensional or less dense realm. But not all stars are the same. Science recognizes this. Science understands that there are tiny differences in the color recipe of the light that is being emanated from each individual star. So if you did a spectroscopic analysis of light from the sun, it has a particular color recipe, but if you checked out the light from a different star, it would have a slightly different color recipe. It might have a little bit more yellow, or a little bit more green, or a little bit more blue. The light from Sol is actually quite yellow. Actually, it's pretty heavy on the yellow. We don't feel that way because we were born here. So we feel that we have just the right amount of yellow. But if we compared our recipe as inhabitants of Earth, and our nearest star is Sol, to people from a different star system, their chakras would have a slightly different recipe. Their light would have a slightly different recipe. They're from a star that has a slightly different personality profile. Okay? Hey, here's my boss. My little cat just showed up. We have a journey of consciousness, and so do stars. We really need to understand here that everything that's happening on a microcosmic level in you, in your own individual life, is happening on a macrocosmic level with stars, with planets, and with galaxies. So as you are on your individual journey of consciousness within one lifetime, and when I draw this time vortex over here, this time vortex, this signifies one human, or whatever, one existence, one life existence. This time cone can also refer to one existence of a star. That there are many possible possibilities and probabilities in the emanations of solar or stellar consciousness, and that the sun is exploring itself just like each one of us individually is exploring themselves. When we go through the process of the refinery of consciousness, eventually we will find the path of least likelihood, that vertical path that exits the wormhole and brings us out of this level of reality and into another level of reality. This is the same with stars. Stars have a journey of consciousness, all right? It might be hard to imagine this because your human lifespan is 100 years at most at present, but a solar lifespan can be billions of years. And you look at the stars and the sun as these eternal things, and they are entities and they are creatures, that have a metabolism and consciousness and sense of self and individuality, and they have a limited lifespan. Stars do not live forever. Stars are born, they have a life experience, and then they die, or die, you can feel my quotes around the word die. They die, or they transcend, or they ascend. So the basic life cycle of a star is that there is material like gases and dust, the raw materials of what a star can be, floating in an unorganized manner. And that there are, this is called the superwave theory. These are not written in stone, waves of organizing principle that travel throughout the cosmos. And this is hard to imagine because these would be waves that go through an ocean that is the size of many galaxies. So it's happening over an enormous time span, and you as an organism could not even observe it and see that it is happening and understand it in the time scale that it is happening. You would have to be the size and time scale of the universe to see this birth occurring. But the organizing principles of the universe are like waves that flow through these collections of dust and gas and begin to organize them. If you have ever seen a video of cymatics, and I can send links out if you want to, but it might be easier for you to just YouTube cymatics, and I'll write it out for you if you want me to. But it will be backwards on your screen. Cymatics with a C. This is what happens if you sprinkle a powder on a plate or something that will vibrate, and then use sound to vibrate the plate. The powders and dust start to organize into complex, beautiful visual patterns. They tend to look a lot like my artwork too. These are symmetrical, regular, we would call them geometric patterns, but they're really patterns that conform to the structure of the universe, the higher dimensional patterns of color, line, shape, form, movement, and texture that are this language of light and vibration. Cymatics is what we can see with our visual eye when a sound or vibration is placed through a medium, like a powder, like, baby powder or salt or something like that. Well, if you can imagine a giant, ocean of baby powder floating in the cosmos, and then the organizing principle of this sound or vibration moving through it, and it begins to create patterns, and it begins to organize, and eventually it begins to coalesce into the consciousness that becomes a star. And a star is a portal for consciousness. It is just like saying it is a mosaic of understanding. When you are connected to the sun in your internal physical body, you are giving the sun one little piece of its mosaic vision. Literally, the sun has emanated you as a sensory apparatus to go out and have experiences and get information and then send it back to the sun and say, this is what is happening here. Yes, and I want to redirect to a related topic too. What will happen when the sun dies? We'll do that, and then here. What will happen when the sun dies? The sun has coalesced, or a star has coalesced out of dust and gas. It has been born. It has certain personality characteristics that are unique. Not all stars are the same. They're all unique, like you and I. Then it has experiences. Like I have said that the planets of our solar system have been undergoing a drama or a narrative experience. Things happened here on all of these different planets, and the experiences of the organisms that occupy the planets within a star system are experienced by that star. And eventually, the star, after billions of years, will run out of fuel. It will reach the end of its lifespan, and then, okay, we think of a star as emanating, sending out, sending out, sending out, right? All of this light and energy and particles and everything sending out, out, out. At a certain point, everything reverses and it collapses in on itself. I like to say it backflips into its own mind. And this is what creates a black hole. So in the past, I've spoken about a black hole being similar to, like, you have a super stretchy fabric of the universe, and then we put an infinitely heavy bowling ball on that fabric. I hope you can see. And the bowling ball is going to go down, and that's going to make the fabric stretch, okay? Well, this is what happens at the end of a star's lifespan, that it no longer is sending energy outward, and now it begins to draw energy inward. This is the balance and symmetry of the universe. During its one portion of the star's lifespan, it emanates and sends out photons. Photons are awareness. Photons are consciousness. Photons are light, and we are made of light, and we are made of photons. So here's the answer. Everything comes from the source, and everything will go back to the source. What makes a star comes from the source and will eventually go back to the source. Everything that we have from the star or from Sol is on loan. We are utilizing both physical matter of stars and also our neurological energy, like the impulses that move along our nerves, like electrical impulses, that comes from the stars. And the timelines that we are moving upon also comes from the sun. The sun pretty much is our parent that gives birth to us, feeds us, and nourishes us throughout our whole entire existence, and does so in order to have an experience of the sensorium. And then we eventually return our experience to the sun, and the sun is like, ah, that's what that was like. And we can either return our experience in real time, like I am right now broadcasting to the sun. This is what it is like to sit on this chair and speak to this computer and, use my vocal cords in this way. I don't have to send this back at the end of my existence because the sun is feeling it right now. But how about when I am distracted? When I'm not fully focused on this moment right now, if I'm feeling anxiety about the future, or if I'm feeling depression because I'm thinking about something bad from the past. When that happens, my cell phone signal, quote unquote, my ability to tune in to the sun is not as strong. And the sun can't really tell what I was doing in that moment, or thinking or feeling in that moment. And it's like, I'll get that information to you later, but you don't get it right now. I will have to send you that information later. The more backlog you get, the less likelihood you have of being an ascended master. Because being an ascended master means that you have done all your laundry. You have digested all of the emotional experiences that you need to digest. You have done the refinery process, and you have refined your consciousness to the point where you are ready to exit this reality. If you have a lot of undigested karmic experiences or energy that has not been processed by the refinery of your body, it is not likely that all of your chakras are in vertical alignment and that you can exit that wormhole. Our sun and all of the stars are also going through their process of refinement to be able to exit reality. One day, our sun and all stars have a limited lifespan, and there will come a day when there will be no more stars born. This is described in science, and I'm also describing this to you as part of the end of this era of this universe in this time and place. In order to make a star, you have to have enough raw materials. At a certain point, there won't be enough dust and gas and unused stuff to make a new star. There will be no more new stars born. And then what will happen is it will just be whatever stars are in existence living out their existence, and then eventually ending and becoming black holes. And black holes, so then what we'll have is a world where stars used to shine and send out light. Now there's no more new stars. Now the stars have died and they're not sending out light anymore. And now they're all black holes. They've died. So now there's all of these Swiss cheese, here you go, Swiss cheese universe. All of these black holes, I'm drawing lots of black holes all throughout. These are all stars that died. And they are all now drawing into them light. These are all portals into infinity. And all of the light that was once emanated out into the world is now being drawn back in. It goes to the source. It doesn't necessarily go back to its origin. It goes to the source, but this is like saying in a different direction. I see a question has come up, so let me answer this. Do black holes pull each other into a super black hole? That is a beautiful question. Proximity matters. I was going to say, I don't know quite how to answer it, but I will say proximity matters. At the end of this is called the era where no more stars are born. I perceive it as a dense realm of total entropy. I do not think it can be described as black holes that suck each other in, but if you can imagine a world that is bereft of any more energy, because all of the light and energy has gone through black holes into different realms, and so all that exists is either darkness or entropy or lack of energy and Swiss cheese holes into a different dimension. So I don't think that I think it's our visual sense wants to see black holes coming into each other like this and then sucking each other in. I don't think that's what would happen, because I think that we would no longer have distance or time and space to make that happen. We wouldn't have distance anymore to make things collapse on top of each other. What would happen, in my understanding, is because of a total state of entropy, which is lack of energy, the totality of any matter that is left becomes a Bose-Einstein condensate. This is the denser than matter state of density. And it achieves unity consciousness because all of the atoms begin to act like one atom. So in the end, all energy will leave the universe. Elvis has left the building. All energy and all consciousness and all everything has left the universe, except for whatever, I want to say dead, whatever husk of matter might exist that does not have energy. So you could have a molecule that is totally cold, totally frozen, and has no light and has no consciousness. And if you had more than one of those, that these molecules would kind of overlap with one another and become just one giant totality of cold, frozen, lack of energy, which is in and of itself a form of unity. So I'm at 29 minutes. I have to pause the back, but that was such a great question. And of course, it's not the end of the cycle. That even when there are no more stars to be born, and there is a world of pure entropy, that is not the end of the cycle. And the process of expansion and contraction happens endlessly. This is how we can have an infinity within a limited space. Because even if you have a limited space like this line and this line, I can run back and forth between these two limitations an infinite number of times. And this is what's going on in the expansion and contraction of consciousness and the universe. Even though it might be happening within a limited amount of space, it can happen in unlimited number of times. Let me get one more picture going and then complete with this. I want to talk about shadows and the shadow realm and where these shadow possibilities come from. Okay. All right. Shadows in the shadow realm and why we are refining consciousness and why this exists. If this is the sun over here, when the sun emits light, that light would travel endlessly in its journey unless it hit something, like a planet. Here I'm drawing Earth. There are some continents on Earth. This light now didn't keep going. Look, it didn't keep going past Earth. It had to stop. And that means that the path of this consciousness was changed. This dot up here is a star. The star is sending out an emanation. The emanation is like a questing or sensory apparatus that says, what's out there? Kind of like you're in a dark room and you're like sending out your fingertips like, hey, what's out there? And it reaches a planet and it feels something. It says, ah, a planet is out there. That means that that consciousness or that light did not continue on its journey. That light was stopped on its journey. And I'm going to draw a slightly different picture. What that means is that if this is the sun or a star, and this light would have been over here, it would have gotten over here, but it didn't get over there because it hit a planet over here. So what that means is there is a shadow. I'm drawing a big, giant, really over-exaggerating it so you can see it on the screen back there. But all of the area in between where the light stopped on its journey and where the light would have continued on its journey becomes a shadow. Here in the physical realm, because we are so used to perceiving with our physical eyes, we almost take the shadow for granted. The shadow is the consequence of matter. Matter is light that has been slowed down in its journey. This light has been waylaid or stopped from moving in the direction that it would have been moving. So there is a balance. There is a balance to experience, okay? This is the same with shadow personality characteristics. I'm beginning to bring this up here, this whole idea of the negative lower vibrational service to self entities, or when we are in the time cone and we are refining for characteristics, what are we refining out? What are we refining towards? We are refining away from the distortion personality characteristics that are not in alignment with higher dimensional consciousness and unconditional love. Unconditional love is like the light waves of a laser. They are coherent. They all match. So coherent light, I hope you can see this. All of the ups and all the downs match. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. This is laser light. And when you are in a state of unconditional love, and you are creating the tone of unconditional love, this is like laser light. You have coherence to what you are sending out. The shadow realm, coherence and refining. You want to be refining your consciousness towards unconditional love and away from these shadows. The shadows are also similar to when you turn on a flashlight. If this is the flashlight, the beam spreads out. The beam goes out like this. It doesn't stay focused and narrow like a laser. All of the stuff that's out to the side, all of that dispersion is not as true and accurate as it could be. So we are talking about a couple of things here. First of all, divine consciousness, or the higher consciousness, or source consciousness, is based in unconditional love and is totally coherent. How then do we understand some of the negative, lower vibrational personality characteristics that we see expressed in the physical realm? And we see it expressed just like we see when light goes through water. If this is a glass of water, When light enters water, it gets slowed down in its path and it kind of turns a little bit. It's that old science experiment of putting a pencil in a glass of water and it looks like the pencil is broken. It's not broken. The light that is the pencil is being distorted by entering into the density of the water. Air is less dense than water. Here, this up here. This is air, and it is less dense than this down here, which is water. And when light enters a denser realm, it gets distorted. We live in this third dimensional realm. This is a denser realm. When the light of consciousness enters this realm, it gets distorted. These are perturbations of the field. This is what I say, this is what I call them. And this does have to do with meditation and mindfulness, because really, and I'm speaking about this because we just did level 1, which is about meditation. Meditating is about cultivating yourself back to true consciousness. You've been dispersed into this realm, or your primary ray of consciousness of the source has been dispersed into these lower tendencies, and now we are refocusing consciousness back to the source and letting go of these lower tendencies, leaving them off on the sidelines, okay? This is happening to you as an individual. You are being refined. You are refining away from personality characteristics such as anger and violence, and towards personality characteristics such as compassion and unconditional love. Because this is how you get to be an ascended master. This is how you get to get off the hamster wheel. How do you get out? How do you get out of this wheel that you've been on for so long? It's just like that lovely movie Groundhog's Day. We love to refer to that and talk about how Bill Murray's character in that movie had to try that day over and over and over again until he refined out some of his own negative personality characteristics. He became a better person. Okay? I'm now going to relate this to the stars and stellar consciousness. And this is really important in preparing humanity for contact or interactions with the galactic world, with galactic civilization. Because first of all, just because a being comes from another realm or lives on a different planet does not necessarily mean that they are more refined in their personality characteristics than you. They generally are not. And this is part of the some of the lies that have been perpetrated upon human Earth surface culture due to the quarantine. So it's kind of like saying humans have low self-esteem. They think we're just humans and we're not that good, and other beings use that to take advantage of you and condescend to you and be like, yes, you're not as good as us and we are much better. This is like older kids on the playground intimidating younger kids on the playground. So what I want to say is that, let me draw a little galaxy here. Here's the supermassive black hole that is at the center of the galaxy. There's a supermassive black hole at the center of every galaxy. There has to be. It's the glue that holds it all together. Science describes it as gravity glue. But I will tell you it is more like consciousness glue. The sun in the sky is like our parent that has emanated the solar system. The supermassive black hole that is at the center of the Milky Way is the parent of our parents, is the creator of the star that is our creator and is connected to creator. This is another portal to source, but not the only portal to source, because it's like, you know, when you're a little tiny child, you look at your mom and dad and you think they're everything, like, because, you know, they're all that you know. And then you get a few years older and you go to school and you meet other kids, and other kids' moms have moms and dads too. So right now we're like, our galaxy, the Milky Way, our supermassive black hole at the center. It's like, you know something, there's a lot of galaxies up there, and every single one of them has a supermassive black hole at its center. So they're all very special, but I want to give you a perspective on, you know, on the magnitude of the totality of what is going on. So the galaxy itself has a personality. It's an entity, it's conscious, and it has a set of characteristics. And those characteristics are denoted by various different star cultures. So let's say there's a blue, let's make it darker. There's a blue star culture that lives in that arm, and here's a green star culture that lives over here, and then here's a red star culture that lives over here. Oh, and this little tiny dot that you can't even see way out in the boonies, that's Earth, all right? So I'm doing this in order to show that red and green and blue, these different star cultures, these are emanations of the primary galactic consciousness. And each one of these star cultures has its own characteristics, and it's valid to have its own characteristics, but they might not all be something that you agree with or that you find to be a positive characteristic. So this goes down to color recipe. In my paintings, I put in a lot of orange, but only a tiny little dash of violet. Color recipe. In a cake, you put in a tiny dash of salt. If you put in a cup of salt, that cake would be poison. Recipe and proportions matter here in quality of energy and in creating the totality. In this galactic being, there are a variety of consciousnesses, and some of them have characteristics like violence and aggression. Or let's say, here's another characteristic, the tendency to move away from God. You would think, that's not a decent thing to do. That's not good. We should all be going to God. We need to only go to God. No, because if you never stepped away from God, how could you ever go to God? You'd always be at home. If you never left home, you could never return to home. Every personality characteristic has a value. It's just that you have to have them in the right proportion. So there is, in our galaxy, the Milky Way, there's a disturbance in one of the arms. There's evidence of star cultures that have not acted harmoniously, like family members that have been fighting. And those fights between those family members in other divergent places absolutely had an impact on our own neighborhood, our own family, the solar system. Those fights of those aunts and uncles out there had an impact on Mars, and what happened on Mars. And what happened on Mars had an impact on Earth and affects your life right here and right now. So there are many things that are happening on many different levels. Refinement is and drama. The drama of thing versus thing, hot versus cold, good versus evil. Anything of one quality contrasting with the thing of another quality. So, there's the red culture, the blue culture, the green culture. They all have different qualities, and they have been in conflict. The galaxy itself, the galactic entity itself, has been exploring itself. So here's what I'm trying to say. There are divergent star cultures that exist that each have their own recipe and their own set of personality characteristics. We cannot judge good or bad. For example, like if you grew up in a housing project in a very urban neighborhood filled with poverty and violence, you would develop certain personality characteristics like not making eye contact, self-reliance, being cautious and not outgoing, all of the life lessons that you learn from growing up in that world. Or how about this? The expectation that others might try to be violent towards you or take advantage of you. Expectation of exploitation or violence. That's from upbringing. If you took that same child and you raised them on a farm in Hawaii and there was never any violence and never any poverty or anything like that, that person would have different personality characteristics. They would be open and loving and trusting. Now let's say you take that open, loving, trusting person and you make them go live in a housing project. They won't survive. In the galaxy, there are various different realms that have different qualities. Some of these realms are very difficult to live in. They have minimal resources. It requires a great deal of physical endurance to live there. And everyone who lives in that realm developed the personality characteristics of what is necessary to survive in that realm. So they might have to be violent or aggressive or steal from others or kill others, because that's what is necessary to live on that planet or in that realm. Let's contrast that with, like, a lot of people that I know are very connected to the Pleiades and the Pleiadians. And there are some planets from the Pleiades, some realms or places where people live, that are so beautiful. These would be analogous to living on vacation in Hawaii all the time. Like, imagine a realm where the air and the water are virtually the same temperature. The water is gentle and never, can make a violent move that would never crash onto you. All of the water is gentle. There are no predator species. There are no pathogenic bacteria or viruses. There's an abundance of food. It is easy to survive, and people survive and thrive in a state of pleasure. It's like one long hedonistic, vacation with multiple partners of, just intimacy and beauty. And that is very, very different than some of these other star cultures where it's about violence and people have to fight against each other, and you cannot trust your neighbor because there's not enough food, and you have to be stronger than your neighbor in order to survive and fight against them all the time. So think about these divergent star cultures and how they would create divergent agendas for the beings that lived there. These are personality characteristics that exist in the totality of the galaxy. And the idea of Star Wars, or that divergent star cultures are in conflict, is actually accurate. These are family members that are fighting. And if we really expand our perspective enough, we recognize that there's only one entity, there's only one consciousness, and all of these star cultures are like aspects of consciousness that are fighting amongst themselves. So it's like, the right hand is punching you, the left hand is punching you, but you're being punched by yourself. This is consciousness exploring itself. So consciousness created all of these different divergent containers. Beautiful, hedonistic, or sensory-loving Pleiadians, and harsh, abusive beings that are evil and violent, and then created the world stage and has been having these interior personality aspects interact on the world stage. This is the process of refinement. This is happening so that consciousness can come to know and understand itself. All right? So the galaxy is filled with consciousness of various characteristics, different star cultures that are coming to know itself. And that has affected our little neck of the woods, our little solar system, where we have various different planets. And the planets have their own personality characteristics. And there has been conflict between inhabitants of the various planets within our solar system. And that's why Mars is dead. So it's like saying we have a family, and Sol is the parent. And then we have other family members that were hurt or even killed. And how did this happen, and why did this happen? This is the primary trauma of you and Earth surface culture right now. In the solar system, between Mars and Jupiter, there is an asteroid belt. And this used to be a planet, and this planet was destroyed. And I'm not sure if I've done the lesson yet about harmonics, but harmonics are like saying that there's an order to the chakra system of your body, and there's an order to the chakra system of the solar system, where we expect to have planets in orderly, nested orbits, and there's one orbit that's empty. There's no planet there. Harmonically, it's like saying, I have all of these notes on the piano. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, red. But there's a note that's missing. There's supposed to be a note there. Where's that note? Well, that's what's going on in our solar system. There is a planet that's supposed to be there. Why is it not there? Because it was destroyed. Okay, we live in a very unconscious society, and science says, oh, it was destroyed, you know, a comet hit it, or, you know, some space debris hit it, or whatever. Science would not ascribe motivation or drama or narrative structure to the events. But there was indeed drama and a narrative structure to the events of that planet being destroyed. And that had an effect on the inhabitants of Mars. And that has had an effect on the inhabitants of Earth and the Earth consciousness. So I have hopefully helped you to do yoga of the perception with this lesson. The idea that not only are you as an individual being refined for certain personality characteristics and getting rid of other personality characteristics, our sun, the star, is being refined in the experiences of the solar system. And all of the star consciousnesses in our galaxy are being refined. What is happening on Earth, surface culture right now, is having an impact on our whole galaxy. And the answer for this really is that it's because who you are as a human right now is an amalgamation or an outgrowth of a variety of these different star cultures. That these star cultures represent divergent personality characteristics that exist within the totality of the galaxy, and they've been fighting it out, and they came to the solar system and created life here. And not only was life incepted here, once life was here, life was manipulated. So one group might have created life in the solar system, and then another group might have come along and changed or amended that creation. Like, you know, person's trying to build a sandcastle, and then along comes their sibling and knocks it down or does something to it or changes it in some way. And this is what has happened with your own genetic code, that humans were meant to be perfect conduits for higher consciousness, for connection to less dense realms, and through these other consciousnesses coming in and degrading the human genetic structure, it meant that these lower consciousnesses could occupy you or ride along with you, but that you would no longer be a seamless conduit emanating your experience back to the sun. That's not very nice. That's kind of like these beings stealing from their parent. It's kind of like these beings saying, parent, you don't get to have unfettered broadcasts from your children. I'm going to start censoring those broadcasts. Even though you might be sending back information directly to the great galactic central sun, these beings act as intermediaries, and they interpose themselves between you and the sun so that you don't connect with the sun anymore. You don't connect with great galactic consciousness anymore. This is your own personal bid for freedom. This is the planetary bid for freedom, and this is having a galactic impact. When you meditate and you make yourself no longer easily eaten away at by these lower vibrational service to self thought entities that would like to eat your attention and steal your experience of the sensorium and not send it directly back to the great galactic center. When you are starving those beings out, you are literally reconnecting to the great galactic center, and you are beginning to feed the galactic center again. All of these experiences that you're having are supposed to be broadcast back there. And this is also supposed to happen in real time. And it is supposed to be so that the galaxy can then respond to your needs. Earth being in quarantine for over 10,000 years means that the great galactic central sun hasn't heard anything from Earth for a while. When you don't hear anything, you kind of think, out of sight, out of mind. I guess everything is fine down there. The great galactic central sun might not know that humanity has been degraded, and enslaved and suffering. There's been horrible violence and abuse. The planet has literally been raped and, degraded. All of that has been going on. But because it is in quarantine, Galactic Central Sun doesn't know about it. Now we get into the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. This is a new era. We are now reconnecting. We are now being able to get around these genetic blockages, get around the blockages that were created by beings that would like to feed off of you, and reconnect to source. So now that we've been doing this, now source knows more of what's going on, and we know more of what's going on. I think it's been more surprising to us than it has been to source. December 21st, 2012. This was when Earth and our solar system was going through the galactic plane of the ecliptic, basically meaning that our solar system was again lining up with the center of the Milky Way, even though we do not need direct line of sight for communication, that this was significant of a alignment of consciousness and a realignment of consciousness, that this solar system had fallen out of alignment with higher consciousness for a very long time, and now we are returning to that state of being aligned. In your own personal experience, in Earth culture, we are changing Earth culture. Everything's going to be different now. And the galaxy herself, or itself, the entity of the galaxy. Eventually, we're going to heal the galaxy. We're not going to have sibling fighting against sibling anymore. On an interior level, this means you won't have to constantly be fighting against demons. You won't constantly have those hackers trying to get into your mind, trying to eat your food or feed off of you, or make negative emotions and feed off of your negative emotions. You won't have that anymore. We are on the journey towards that. It's like saying it's 1944, but World War II isn't over yet. So when people speak about quote-unquote dark forces or the Cabal or Illuminati, that's what this is connected to. This is literally connected to star cultures that are divergent in the galaxy, that are all trying to control humanity on Earth and Earth, the planet herself. And Earth herself is a wonderful creative artist and is meant to be free and sovereign. In the earlier part of level 1, I spoke about how I do not have the power to give you your sovereignty. You were born with it. You were born with your freedom. I do not have the temerity to say that I am granting you your freedom and sovereignty. Far from it. I am merely informing you of it, and that information is quite empowering. The galaxy is going to change. The quality of energy of who is in the galaxy is going to change. We are going to vanquish duality. We are no longer going to have divergent star cultures fighting amidst themselves. This is like saying your liver and your pancreas are going to stop fighting. This fighting in the galaxy has been analogous to disease in a body. We have had a disease in the galaxy, and the events in your personal life and on the planet and as Earth culture and as a solar system and as a galaxy, this is the healing of the galaxy. So when and I have to end the broadcast in the back, but I'm just going to speak a little bit more. When we are talking about healing the galaxy, what we're talking about is reconnecting to the galactic beings and galactic culture that we have been artificially separated from for a very long time. And this reconnection is like your right hand coming, it's been cut off from your body, like nerve damage. And all of a sudden the nerve damage is reconnecting, and it's like, wait, I have a hand. And your hand is like, wait, I've got a person. So we are connecting human Earth culture with galactic culture. And this is pretty important. Not all cultures are not made the same. Not all cultures are friendly. Not all of these spacefaring races or species have the best interest of you as an individual or Earth surface culture at heart. We need to be very selective about who we interact with on the surface of the planet and also in the realm of pure consciousness, which is really where most of these interactions are going to be happening. So I'm going to end the recording for the screen for posterity, but then I'm going to open up the class to any questions that you might have.